Goldfields stories of Western Australia, where we bring to life the true tales of grit, ingenuity, and wild ambition from our pioneering past. Now, you've probably heard about Kalgoorlie's famous gold rush, its rowdy pubs and hopeful prospectors. But did you know that over a century ago, right there in the red dust of the Goldfields, a group of young lads built the very first airplane in Western Australia? This is their story. It all started back in 1912 with three apprentices from the Kalgoorlie School of Mines: Paul Jentsch, Roy Burton, and Walter Peters. These weren't wealthy men or big city engineers, just a few local blokes with big ideas and dreaming of the sky. Now, flying in those days was still new. The Wright brothers had only taken off a decade earlier in America, and there were no airplanes at all in Western Australia. Not even plans to build one. But these fellas weren't going to let that stop them. By the next year, they were joined by a young Englishman, a licensed pilot named Jack Gear. In fact, at the time, Jack was believed to be the only licensed pilot in the entire state. Together, they formed what they called the Kalgoorlie Aero Syndicate, 20 men in total, each putting in a few pounds until they raised £500. No small feat in those days. They managed to get hold of aeroplane plans from the British War Office. Paul Jentsch, who was a fine draftsman, redrew them all by hand. The frame was made from hickory and steel sheets, and the engine came second-hand, salvaged from a crashed monoplane in New South Wales. After almost a year of hard graft, they rolled out their creation, a homemade two-seater biplane. Now, people in Kalgoorlie had never seen anything like it. When the syndicate displayed the frame at the Kalgoorlie Town Hall, over 300 people came to take a look. Mayor H.W. Davidson called it a monument to their energy and ability. Next came the real test. Could the thing fly? They moved the biplane to a field near Kalgoorlie and made their first trial flights. And yes, it flew. Not very high, and not very far, but it got off the ground. At one point, Jack even landed it smack bang on Bailey Street, Kalgoorlie's main road, and tied it to a veranda post at the local pub. The townsfolk were so impressed, they treated him to free meals and drinks, as you do. In June of 1915, they attempted a flight from Kalgoorlie back to Kalgoorlie, but halfway there, the engine gave out. The plane nosedived into the dirt. Amazingly, Jack was unharmed, but the propeller was smashed. Not once to give up easily, they repaired the damage, only for the plane to be damaged again. This time, when the horses pulling it on a lorry spooked and crashed it into a telegraph pole. Still, they carried on. Later that year, they raffled off a passenger flight to raise money. A man named J. Brown from Boulder won and gave the ticket to his 17-year-old daughter. Let's just say it didn't go smoothly. During the flight, the girl panicked, started screaming to be let out. Jack did his best to calm her, even taking his feet off the rudder to hold her in. A gust of wind lifted one wing, and down they went again. More damage. Another rebuild. By November, they packed up the aircraft and sent it to Perth by train to raise further funds. Their destination? Belmont Park Racecourse. There, a curious pressman from the Daily News climbed aboard. The flight inspired a breathless article the next day. The view of Perth described as a picture never to be forgotten, and the engine noise compared to a mix of a cyclone and machine gun fire. But the crowds didn't show up. The exhibition raised only £50, not even enough to cover the cost of the train ride from Kalgoorlie. Still, one man was thoroughly taken by it all. A Spanish-born publican named Mac de Pedro, owner of the Alhambra bars in Barrack Street. Mac was so obsessed with the plane, he reportedly followed it in his car from Belmont to the city. Eventually, Jack gave in and took him for a joyride. When the plane was finally mothballed in early 1916, its engine cracked beyond repair, Mac was gifted the old propeller. He proudly displayed it in his pub for years. Today, it lives on in the Royal Aero Club of Western Australia near Jandakot Airport. As for the rest of the syndicate, Paul Jentsch died young in a car accident. Roy Burton was wounded while serving as a pilot in Egypt during the war. Walter Peters went to England and later returned to Perth. And Jack Gear, the man who flew it all, became a captain in the Australian Flying Corps, returned home, married, and passed away in 1951. The plane itself, the first ever built in WA, is gone, but its legacy remains. Professor Sam Spearing, director of the WA School of Mines, says he keeps a photo of that flight in his office. Why? Because, as he puts it, they set goals and reached for the sky. Literally, they crashed it several times and still tried again. Thanks for joining us for this episode of Goldfields Stories of Western Australia. If you enjoyed the tale of the Kalgoorlie biplane, please follow the show, leave a rating, and share it with a fellow history lover. Until next time, keep your feet on the ground and your heart in the Goldfields.